Okay, so that's a lot better. So I can actually get round the whole engine now. Okay guys, so back up on the Porsche today. I've just been doing a bit of tidying up here. It's amazing how, you know, how much dirt gets about here. This is because of the open ceiling, but also because of all the work that I've been doing on my car. So anyway, I've sort of put in another shelf here. I actually need more space. It's amazing how much space you need when you start taking stuff off a car. But anyway, so I've uncovered the engine today, and I've been thinking about it over the last couple of days. Last night I was doing some research on what I'm going to do with the engine while it's out. And I think the logical things to do are the AOS, so the air separator, air oil separator. And I bought one of those for about £100, but I just found out last night, and maybe you guys have got an opinion on this, on the 996 there's this quite cumbersome air oil separator, which is this part here. But on the 997, which is the same engine just bought out to 3.8 rather than 3.6, they've got a different version, which is a lot simpler and supposed to be better for the engine, which is really, which is fantastic. But shame I didn't know that before I bought the part. So I'm going to have a look into that to see if it's something I'm going to do to this. If it's better for the engine, then I'll do it, and I'll just have to sell the other part as a new used part. I don't know. But anyway, so there's that I'm going to look at. I'm going to do the injectors, as I've mentioned before. I've only just done the plugs and the coil packs, so they can stay. Somebody's just offered me an X51 pack for the air intake manifolds, which isn't all of the X51 pack, it's just a section of it. But he hasn't given me a price yet, and I think, you know, if you're going to do it, then do it properly. But, you know, it's just going to add so much money to the project that I think I'm probably going to leave that. I'm going to have a look at the chain guides, which is probably going to be quite involved. I've been looking at what that entails online, and it really does mean stripping down the engine and taking the covers off left and right, locking the camshafts and so on, which all seems pretty straightforward. But yeah, I mean, it's something that I should really do. In the last oil change, in fact, the 2 oil changes that I've done recently, I've found some very hard grains in there, and I'm guessing and they're sort of dark brown, which has got to be the chain guides. And with 100,000 miles on it, it's bound to be. So if I'm taking the engine out, definitely got to do that. But that does mean quite a lot of work, which I'm, you know, got quite a lot of respect for. So apart from that, injectors, I said, I'm thinking about doing on the top end a new gasket set, because I had that done on the X5 and it runs far more quietly now. What else am I going to do? I think that's it for now. Oh, the rear main seal, because I think it's leaking. But otherwise, I'm just going to take some minor parts off at the moment just to get a feel for it. So that's what I'm doing now. Okay, so I just got the AOS out, and I found a whole bunch more nuts and stuff and crud in the back there from where obviously something was living in there at some point in time, before my time, I'm sure. And that's the AOS. As I say, it's working fine. And as I say, I'm going to look into the 997 version. Yeah, it dripped a whole bunch of water out of there when I took it out. But apart from that, that's it. Okay, so I'm just going to make some space on this side by removing this silencer. Okay, so 2 things. Firstly, the bracket, which I should have known from the last time I did this, doesn't come away from the engine without taking the manifolds off. So I had to take the muffler off of the bracket. But I tell you, when I fitted these, I just smeared all the surfaces in anti-seize paste, and it worked a treat. All of the nuts have stayed absolutely, and the bolts have stayed tight, but they came away really easily, nice and easily when I removed them. So really worth doing that. And had Porsche done that in the factory, we would have a much easier time taking the studs out. But you know, it wouldn't take much forethought to do it, but they didn't do it. But anyway, so I've removed that over there, and now I'm going to take off the manifolds. If I can get to the bolts, it's a bit difficult because, or the studs I should say, because I'm limited space under here. But that's what's next. Okay, so quick update. I've removed the manifold and the cat and that bracket, of course, from this side of the engine. I've also removed the other silencer or muffler, and I'm just going to take off the other cat and the manifold now. And I tell you, quite a few of you have written to me and said, "Oh, the manifold studs and you know, redoing those is something I've always been meaning to do, but haven't quite got round to it." And I tell you, it is a big job, especially if the studs snap. But like I said to somebody yesterday, the sooner you do it, I think the better it will be, because after 2 years now of having these on, basically what I did was, I can't see it there, I put some anti-seize paste on everything I did, and you can see it, it's still on there. That white stuff, it lasts forever. All of these bolts here that hold the manifold together, or connect to the manifold, sorry, and all of the bolts that I replaced underneath. No, here, these ones, bearing in mind they're stainless steel I put in there. You can see it's all still on there, and that's 2 years later. And that's the best thing you can do, because although it's tight and it's torqued to spec, they just come away really easily, and it just makes the job so much better. So if anybody's thinking about doing it, you should definitely do it. It'll be a pain in the ass to do it first, but then once you've done it, and you're planning to keep the car for a while, then it makes a world of difference. So all of the bolts that I'm going to, and all of the studs that I'm going to take off on the engine in doing the work, I'm going to paste in that anti-seize when I put it all back together, because it's just so good. Okay, so I've done a little bit of tidying up, and what I need to do now is, I don't know if I've shown you already, but I've removed both silencers, all of the manifolds and cats and so on. I also removed this engine hanger bracket off the front, and I haven't had that off before actually, for obvious reasons. So obviously it really exposes a lot of components there at the front when you remove that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the engine around this way so I can get to the front and the back of it. That should make it easier. Okay, so that's a lot better. So I can actually get round the whole engine now, front to back. And also it allows the car to come down with not much space, to be honest, but at least a little bit of space. So I can work on the car and the engine. Okay, I just gave the engine a little bit of a clean up, just to, you know, it's just nicer working on a slightly cleaner engine. Obviously it's really dirty still. All of the cast alloy parts are still very dirty. I don't want to clean it up too much because I want to see what I can see, if you see what I mean. There's obviously a lot of oil on this side, and there's been some leakage from around this area, and I think it's the middle injector on cylinder 2. That's what I think. A friend of mine thinks it might be something else. So I don't know if, you know, what you guys think, whether that's sort of, it's coming right from there. You can actually see where it's shiny and still wet. The light, I'm sorry, is terrible in here, but it's the best I can do. It's quite wet in there. It's quite wet on this wiring loom here as well. In fact, there's something coming away there. I wonder what that is. Oh goodness, maybe it's the wiring loom tape. So I think it's the injector, but I'm going to replace those anyway. But if any of you know about a common problem here, a leak, it looks quite oily to me, because obviously if it's fuel it wouldn't be oily, but I guess fuel would sort of cake up with dust and stuff. Anyway, that's one thing. It's not wet, or, I mean it is dirty, but it's not wet on the back of the intake manifold. you can see the sort of sludge up here. There's obviously been a big leak somewhere over the years. I mean, this is just caked in oil. It might well have been the rear main seal. I think the rear main seal needs doing again. But on the gearbox was absolutely caked in oil as well. And this side you can see as well. That is WD-40, that shiny part, but it's still very, very dirty. And it was leaking under here as well. And I think that was the new oil-fed IMS bearing. I think it's a not Turner. Turner Engineering's for the Land Rover. LN Engineering oil-fed IMS bearing, that is, which is quite cool. The previous owner did that, and that's quite an expensive upgrade. One of the reasons why I bought the car. But anyway, pushing on, I'm just going to keep doing some cleaning and have a look at the tools that I need for the job, because even sort of simple tools like this, I've got the right tool, but it doesn't fit within that space in there, so I've got to get some new tools. Okay, so I've tidied everything up now. I just had the bodywork guy here who's been helping me with the underside, and I guess he was here for 2 hours, seam sealing everything. He knows his stuff, so he's, you know, leaving things open where they should be left open, but sealing stuff where they need to be sealed. So the next step now is for him to come back and brush some lighter seam sealant on certain places, like here. You can see where I've taken it away. Then we're going to do the stone chip, and then he's going to mix the colour which is original to the car, the underside colour, which is that sort of this sort of a colour, and then we're going to spray it. So he says it's going to happen not this weekend, it's Monday today, so not this weekend, but the next weekend. And I really, really hope we can get it done, because this etch primer, which I've undercoated with, is not good to leave for a long time. I've already done the rear half twice, because etch primer, it just sucks in the water and it starts rusting again. So what I should have used, which is frustrating as hell, is epoxy primer. And so it's not a mistake I'll make twice. So next time I do something like this, I'll use an epoxy primer, because epoxy primer resists moisture and you can leave it. But with etch primer you can't, and you shouldn't. So you live and learn. But anyway, as you can see, oops, light, it's looking pretty good. And next step is, as I say, stone chip, more sealant, and then paint. And then, when that's all done, he said, get the axles back on, and then he'll come pick it up with the trailer, and then we'll blend in the parts of bodywork, so your body colour. So around here, around the rear wheel arches, there are bits that need to be redone. So that can happen in the winter, because obviously he's got a proper facility at his company. But anyway, that's it for today. I'm going to pack up and go home. I'll see you next time. I hope you enjoyed the video. See you soon.